Washington Post correspondent Anne Gearan is joining us now to talk about all the day's happenings with the UN. So the president is meeting with Arab leaders here. We saw him with Abbas, with King Abdullah, and he's also meeting with Egypt's president as well. Overall goal here while meeting with these leaders?
Well, two. The first one is to talk about the possibilities for Middle East peace. And the second one is to talk about the situation in the Middle East generally, which includes Syria and Iran and the spread of terrorism, Hezbollah, a number of other groups that are of great concern to Trump. But as you saw him say there with President Abbas of the Palestinian Authority, that he still believes that there is a chance for Middle East peace. He wants to be the guy to do it. And he wants to be able to bring these two leaders together. It's notable that Abbas and Netanyahu were here in New York overlapping for a couple of days this week, and no one said a peep about them ever possibly being in the same room.
Right. So you have front page story today, along with your colleague David Nakamura. Trump makes defiant UN debut, and he defends his America First outlook. A lot of people have also suggested that whilst there was clearly a strong mention of the America First platform that he campaigned on, he also talked about intervening in a couple of places, including Latin America and including destroying North Korea.
Right.
What did you make of that? Those two sort of contrasts in the speech.
He was trying to shoehorn a lot into what's supposed to be a 20-minute speech. His went 43. No one sticks to the 20-minute rule, by the way, but in theory, it was supposed to be a 20-minute speech. So there's not a lot. He didn't flesh that all the way out, but you're right. There's a dichotomy between saying sovereignty of each nation is important, and it is a bedrock principle of the United Nations. Otherwise, why would we all be here except to advance our own interests and do that together? Point one. And point two, there are things the United States cannot live with. And then he listed 5 or 6 different regimes and the sort of the pan-national or transnational threat of terrorism, which of course involves sovereignty, right? Terrorists live in countries. So there's and to say that the United States will act on its own if need be, or will call out and condemn and expect the world to join it in condemning the activities of certain regimes, not only against the interests of the United States, but against the interests of their own people. And there he's talking about Cuba and Venezuela particularly. There is no direct threat to the United States from either of those countries, but he spent a good bit of time talking about them yesterday.
Yeah, and as interesting, I think, are some of the things that he left out, that we didn't focus on as heavily. And certainly he criticized North Korea and Iran, but he kind of shied away. He treated Russia with kid gloves, and China too. Didn't really heavily criticize those two countries that, sort of prop up North Korea.
A glancing blow at best, right? He did not include Russia in the list of bad actor countries, although he did specifically call out the situation in Ukraine, the territorial dispute there, and the and violence that was fairly early on. He didn't return to that theme, and again didn't put Russia on the bad guy list. And then China was entirely in the context of trade, and that was the part of the speech where that's Trump not talking to the people in that room. That's Trump talking to his supporters not really his base, but sort of the conservative supporters who will be thinking about this speech, writing about it, talking about it. And they wanted to hear him say something about United States economic power and trade and the sense that the United States is being taken advantage of economically. That is not really the UN's bailiwick, but it was interesting that he slipped that in there.
Yeah, well, he also talked about the middle class, which isn't the UN's bailiwick either. But
he
wanted to make sure that everybody who supported him knew that he still has their back, which is what the
president economy was doing, how great Wall Street is doing.
He patted himself on the back for like 3 minutes at the beginning.
Yes, exactly. But here's a point that I think needs to be made because you talked about those conservatives who admire and support President Trump. And he has been, since he was a candidate, talking about the Iran deal, saying it's a bad deal. He mentioned it again yesterday. He said it was an embarrassing deal. What maybe a lot of people may not realize is it's not just the United States that is a part of this treaty. There are other countries. And if those other countries, as indicated by all the reports that are out there, do not want to break this treaty, if the United States decides to withdraw, then we're on our own. It's not those countries. Those countries will continue to trade with Iran Iran as long as they continue to adhere to the requirements of that treaty. And so that could be a problem for the United States because we will not be able to check their nuclear weapons program if we're not a part of this treaty.
Not in the same way. Yeah, I mean, it is a whole lot more complicated than Trump makes it sound. He says this is a bad deal for the United States. It's one-sided and it's an embarrassment. He did not, I will note, specifically call out former President Obama yesterday, who was of course, the U.S. Architect of the deal, the signer of the deal, and where he has done so in the past. But it's a six-party deal, and it's backed by the United Nations, 193 countries by extension. So there is a strong international coalition and consensus that the deal does one very important thing. It pushes the prospect of an Iranian nuclear bomb effectively down the road a good ways. It does not end that specter at all. It does not completely dispel it, and it does not directly address Iranian behavior in the region, which everyone agrees, is troublesome. Whether you think they are directly sponsoring a lot of the bad activity in Syria or not, they definitely have funded a number of groups in the region. They definitely have an active ballistic missile program and so forth. The deal specifically split those things off and said it is important enough for the world to agree with Iran that we're going to push the nuclear issue down the road aside. We're going to essentially cap it where it is, that we can deal with the other things separately. Trump's view is that was the wrong fundamental approach. His criticism of the deal is so basic, like as to say the deal shouldn't exist because it doesn't do all of these other things, when actually the deal was designed specifically not to do that, right?
And that's what Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, has said. Exactly. He has said, look, we agree that Iran should not fund terrorist organizations, that they should not fight these proxy wars, and we can deal with that together, much in the same way that we have with the nuclear program.
But he also said, listen, when you talk about pulling out of this deal, someone else is watching. North Korea is watching.
Right. Yeah. And that's an issue for the president, who has threatened to destroy that country if they continue down this path of belligerence.
Yeah, I mean, the relationship between what happens to the Iran deal and North Korea is a real one.
Anne Gearan, thank you.